The Nexus station hung like a crystalline jewel against the infinite black of space. Its transparent domes and interconnected habitation rings a testament to galactic cooperation. Thousands of species moved through its corridors, tentacled beings from methane worlds, silicon-based life forms that shimmered like living glass, and the relatively young human delegation that had become increasingly prominent in interstellar affairs. Dr. Elena Rodriguez moved with purpose through the station's central research hub. Her environmental suit was a marvel of human engineering, adaptive materials that responded to her body's temperature and the varying atmospheric conditions of the station's different sectors. Unlike many of her contemporaries, she didn't view her work as a competition between species, but as a collaborative journey of discovery. The Xenobiology Conference was entering its third day, a marathon of scientific exchange that pushed the boundaries of interstellar understanding. Researchers from dozens of civilizations shared insights, their translation devices creating a constant hum of multilingual communication. Elena's current presentation focused on adaptive genetic markers, a breakthrough that could revolutionize how different species understood biological adaptation. The Krelthari delegation sat in the front row, their crystalline exoskeletons reflecting the holographic displays with a prismatic shimmer. They were known throughout the galaxy as a species of pure logic, their society built on rigid hierarchical structures and a belief in absolute technological superiority. Where other species saw collaboration, the Krelthari saw potential weakness. As Elena concluded her presentation, she noticed the slight tension in the Krelthari representatives. Their translator devices clicked with a sound that suggested more than simple mechanical translation. It was almost like a language of judgment. She had presented data that challenged some of their long-held beliefs about genetic plasticity, showing how biological systems could adapt in ways their own scientists had never considered. The conference hall buzzed with quiet conversations. Researchers from various species approached Elena, asking detailed questions about her research. The Centauri representatives were particularly interested, their multiple sensory appendages moving with excitement. A group of Gentak researchers were drawing complex diagrams, trying to integrate her findings into their own understanding of evolutionary processes. Nobody saw the Krelthari diplomat move. It happened in a moment that seemed to stretch into eternity. The diplomat's plasma blade, a tool typically used in rare ceremonial contexts, emerged with surgical precision. The weapon hummed with contained energy, its molecular edge capable of cutting through most known materials with minimal resistance. Elena turned, perhaps sensing something in the ambient environment. Her eyes met those of the Krelthari diplomat, a moment of pure, inexplicable connection. In that fraction of a second, volumes were communicated. Confusion, surprise, the beginning of a question that would never be completed. The blade moved. Surrounding researchers froze. The station's advanced sensors detected the incident instantly, but advanced technology meant nothing in the face of such sudden violence. Elena's body collapsed, her decades of research, her lifetime of discovery, reduced to a moment of senseless destruction. The Krelthari diplomat didn't run, didn't show emotion, simply stood there, the plasma blade retracting, looking at the fallen scientist as if she were nothing more than a mathematical problem to be solved, and then discarded. Station security moved with practiced efficiency. Containment protocols engaged. The research hub was sealed, holographic barriers preventing any potential spread of conflict. But something had changed. The atmosphere itself seemed to shift, a collective intake of breath from thousands of species who witnessed the moment. Communications began to pulse through the station's networks. Translation algorithms worked overtime, converting the incident into 1,000 different linguistic and conceptual frameworks. But the core message remained the same. A human researcher had been killed, and the circumstances were anything but clear. The Krelthari diplomat was detained, but showed no signs of concern. Their species had diplomatic protocols that had protected them through countless potential conflicts. This would be no different, they believed. A minor incident to be resolved through bureaucratic channels. They were wrong. In that moment, as Elena's body was carefully moved and her research data secured, the first ripples of a response began to form. Not a violent reaction. Not an immediate declaration of war. Something far more complex was taking shape. A response that would reverberate through the entire galactic community. Humanity was preparing to answer. The first transmission arrived at the United Earth Diplomatic Center precisely 37 minutes after Elena Rodriguez's death. A compressed data packet that looked like routine communication to any external observer. But beneath its mundane exterior lay the first threads of a response that would reshape interstellar dynamics. In Geneva, a team of specialists gathered in a circular room designed to look almost ordinary. Holographic displays flickered to life, not with dramatic red alerts, but with calm, calculated information streams. Experts from diverse backgrounds began to move, not with panic, but with a precision that spoke of long-prepared contingencies. Dr. Marcus Chen, head of the Interstellar Response Coordination Unit, studied the initial reports with a clinical eye. His team wasn't military, nor were they traditional diplomats. They were problem solvers, strategists who understood that true power in the galactic community was about far more than military might. "Initiate Protocol Omega-7, he said quietly. Across the planet, systems began to activate. Not weapon systems, not military deployments, something far more intricate. In Mumbai, a consortium of technology companies received encrypted communications. Their quantum computing networks, which had been developing advanced predictive algorithms, suddenly found new purpose. Trading algorithms began to shift, subtle redirections that would be invisible to most observers. A research facility in Sao Paulo received a similar signal. Their work on adaptive network systems, originally developed for climate change resilience, found a new application. Communication pathways began to reconfigure, creating redundant networks that could circumvent traditional information channels. Tokyo's financial districts saw the first whispers of economic repositioning. Investment patterns started to change, not dramatically, but with the precision of a surgeon's scalpel. Rare earth mineral contracts became more complicated. Supply chains began to subtly twist and reshape. What looked like routine business activity to an outside observer was actually a carefully choreographed response. In Cape Town, a team of data analysts began compiling a comprehensive profile of the Krell-Theory diplomatic corps. Not for revenge, but for understanding. Every communication, every historical interaction was being analyzed. Patterns emerged, subtle vulnerabilities that most species would have overlooked. The global response wasn't a unified shout, but a whispered symphony. Universities received priority research directives. Elena's work wasn't going to be forgotten. Instead, her research would be amplified, every discovery shared across open-source platforms that spanned multiple languages and scientific disciplines. Diplomatic channels remained seemingly calm. Official statements were measured, almost bureaucratic in their tone. But beneath this calm exterior, a storm was brewing. The Galactic Concordance Communication Hub received the first diplomatic communiques. They were masterpieces of diplomatic language, each word carefully chosen, each sentence a potential chess move. The human response didn't demand immediate action. It simply presented facts, requested clarifications, and began to weave a narrative that would make intervention impossible to ignore. Space exploration teams began repositioning research vessels, not as a threat, but as a demonstration of continued scientific exploration. Each mission carried additional communication and data-gathering capabilities, creating a network that would make traditional intelligence gathering look primitive. In Beijing, a team of quantum communication specialists started developing new encryption protocols. These weren't defensive measures, but adaptive systems that could communicate across multiple platforms, anticipating potential communication disruptions. The Krell-Theory would soon discover that humanity's response was nothing like they expected. By the end of the first 12 hours, nothing appeared to have changed. No dramatic declarations, no military mobilizations, just a series of seemingly unrelated adjustments that would take weeks, perhaps months, to fully understand. But the foundation had been laid. Humanity was responding, not with anger, but with a calculated, multidimensional approach that defied traditional conflict resolution. The galaxy was about to learn that human resilience was more than just a military concept. It was a complex, adaptive system that could reshape entire interstellar dynamics with nothing more than information, cooperation, and an unwavering commitment to justice. Elena Rodriguez's death was not going to be a simple footnote in diplomatic history. It was going to be a transformative moment that would echo through generations. The response was just beginning. The global economic network hummed with an almost imperceptible change. To most observers, nothing seemed different. But beneath the surface, a complex mechanism of pressure was being carefully constructed. In the financial districts of Hong Kong, London, and New York, quantum trading algorithms began their intricate dance. These were not simple market manipulations, but sophisticated strategic repositionings that would take weeks to fully comprehend. The first target was rare earth mineral contracts. The Krell theory relied on a complex supply chain that stretched across multiple star systems. Humanity didn't block these contracts. Instead, they made them incrementally more complicated. Each additional layer of certification, each minor regulatory adjustment created friction. Dr. Elena Rodriguez's research institute became the focal point of an unprecedented global academic and economic initiative. Universities worldwide began synchronizing their research-sharing platforms. What had been individual research projects now became a coordinated global effort to amplify and protect scientific knowledge. Diplomatic channels received carefully worded communications. These weren't threats, but intricate proposals that reframed the entire conversation. Each document was a masterpiece of diplomatic engineering, creating legal frameworks that would make traditional conflict resolution obsolete. In Singapore, a consortium of technology companies received specialized directives. Their quantum communication networks began to create alternative data pathways, not to disrupt, but to provide options. Each new network was a potential route, a bypass around traditional communication channels. The Krell theory first noticed something was wrong when their standard mineral procurement processes began to slow down. Not stop, just slow. A contract that typically took 3 standard weeks now required 5. Another needed additional environmental impact assessments. Trade partners began to hesitate, not because of direct pressure, but because the administrative complexity had increased exponentially. Each transaction now carried additional layers of scrutiny. Each communication required more detailed documentation. Research vessels from multiple human universities began positioning themselves near key trade routes. Their mission wasn't military. They were scientific expeditions, each equipped with advanced communication and data-gathering capabilities. Their very presence created a subtle form of diplomatic pressure. Economic analysts from the Galactic Concordance began to take notice. The human response defied traditional understanding of conflict resolution. This wasn't economic warfare. It was something far more nuanced, a systemic recalibration of interstellar economic dynamics. The Centauri trading networks, traditionally neutral, started to show signs of careful repositioning. They weren't taking sides, but they were paying attention. The way humanity was responding suggested a level of strategic thinking that went beyond traditional diplomatic approaches. Quantum communication networks developed by human researchers began to offer alternative communication protocols. These weren't just technical solutions, but frameworks that fundamentally reimagined how different species could interact. In the research facilities of Sao Paulo, a team of economists and data scientists worked on something unprecedented. They were developing adaptive economic models that could respond to complex interstellar dynamics. Each model was a living system, capable of adjusting to subtle changes in real time. The Krell theory diplomatic corps found themselves in an unprecedented situation. Their standard conflict resolution protocols were becoming increasingly ineffective. Each attempt to navigate traditional channels met with a response that was both precise and maddeningly complex. Universities worldwide began a coordinated research initiative. Elena Rodriguez's work was not going to be forgotten. Instead, it would be amplified, expanded, turned into a global scientific mission that transcended her individual loss. By the end of the first month, nothing dramatic had occurred. No military actions, no direct confrontations, just a series of interconnected adjustments that were slowly, inexorably changing the entire framework of interstellar interactions. The Galactic Concordance Communication Hub received reports that seemed almost contradictory. Humanity wasn't attacking the Krell theory. They were fundamentally reimagining the systems of interaction. What looked like economic pressure was actually a complex, multidimensional response. Each adjustment was a carefully placed piece in a much larger strategic puzzle. The galaxy was about to learn that human resilience was about more than military might. It was about adaptability, collaborative intelligence, and a commitment to fundamental principles that transcended traditional conflict resolution. Elena Rodriguez's death was becoming a catalyst for something far greater than anyone could have anticipated. The first quantum pulse traveled across galactic networks with a precision that defied conventional understanding. It wasn't an attack. It was a message. Dr. Marcus Chen watched from the Interstellar Research Coordination Center as the complex data stream began its journey. Hundreds of research institutions, seemingly working independently, were actually performing a synchronized global operation that would redefine technological interaction. Elena Rodriguez's research database became the epicenter of an unprecedented scientific initiative. Every paper, every research note, every preliminary finding was being simultaneously analyzed, expanded, and distributed across multiple platforms. What the Krell theory thought was a simple elimination of a researcher was about to become their greatest miscalculation. In the quantum research facility near Tokyo, a team of scientists began implementing a communication protocol that was part scientific exploration, part diplomatic statement. Their quantum networks could now adapt in real time, creating communication pathways that were almost sentient in their responsiveness. The Krell theory communication networks first experienced the anomaly as a subtle interference, not a complete breakdown, but a gradual degradation of their most secure channels. Firewalls that had been impenetrable for centuries began to show unexpected vulnerabilities. Universities worldwide had received a coordinated directive. Elena's work would not only be preserved, it would be amplified. Research teams began cross-referencing her findings, developing new methodologies that expanded on her groundbreaking work in xenobiology. A research vessel positioned near the galactic core began transmitting a continuous stream of scientific data. Its communication arrays were far more than simple research tools. Each transmission carried layers of encrypted information, creating a complex web of scientific and diplomatic communication. The technological response was surgical. Humanity wasn't seeking destruction. They were demonstrating a fundamental principle. Knowledge cannot be silenced. Quantum computing centers in Brazil and India began developing adaptive communication protocols. These weren't just technical solutions, they were living systems of information exchange. Each network could reconfigure itself, finding new pathways of communication that traditional systems couldn't comprehend. The Galactic Concordance Communication Hub received the first reports of the technological response. It was unlike anything they had seen before. Humans weren't just using technology, they were reimagining how technological systems could interact. In the research facilities of Cape Town, a team of communication specialists worked on something unprecedented. They were developing communication algorithms that could adapt in real time, creating pathways of information exchange that transcended traditional technological barriers. The Krell theory discovered that their most secure communication networks were becoming increasingly compromised, not through direct attacks, but through a complex series of adaptive interventions that slowly, methodically dismantled their technological advantages. Universities worldwide began a coordinated research initiative that transformed Elena's individual work into a global scientific mission. Each research team added layers of complexity, turning her preliminary findings into a comprehensive exploration of interspecies genetic adaptation. Quantum communication networks developed by human researchers began to offer alternative communication protocols. These weren't just technical solutions, but frameworks that fundamentally reimagined how different species could share scientific knowledge. By the end of the first research cycle, something extraordinary had happened. Alina's work had been not just preserved, but expanded. Multiple research teams had built upon her preliminary findings, creating a comprehensive database of scientific knowledge that was freely available to any species interested in collaboration. The technological response defied traditional understanding of conflict resolution. This wasn't about defeating an opponent. It was about demonstrating the power of collaborative scientific exploration. Space exploration teams began positioning research vessels in strategic locations. Their mission wasn't military. They were scientific expeditions, each equipped with advanced communication and data-gathering capabilities that pushed the boundaries of technological interaction. The Centauri research networks, traditionally cautious, began to show interest. They recognized something profound was happening, a fundamental reimagining of how scientific knowledge could be shared and expanded. What looked like a technological response was actually a complex, multidimensional statement about the nature of scientific exploration. Humanity wasn't just protecting its own. It was demonstrating a commitment to knowledge that transcended individual loss. Alina Rodriguez's death was becoming a catalyst for a scientific revolution that would reshape interstellar understanding. The galaxy was about to learn that human technological capability was about more than military might. It was about adaptive intelligence, collaborative exploration, and an unwavering commitment to scientific progress. The Galactic Concordance diplomatic chamber fell silent when the human delegation entered. It wasn't their numbers that commanded attention, but the absolute precision of their presence. Ambassador Helena Reyes moved with a calm that spoke of careful preparation. Her team wasn't dressed in traditional diplomatic attire, but in adaptive environmental suits that seemed to subtly shift with the chamber's atmospheric conditions. Each member carried a data repository that contained more than just diplomatic credentials. They carried the comprehensive story of Alina Rodriguez. "We are here," Helena began, "not to seek revenge, but to redefine our understanding of interstellar cooperation." The chamber, typically a place of rigid protocols and carefully measured statements, found itself unprepared for the human approach. Diplomatic representatives from 100 different species watched as Helena began to present not a case for punishment, but a framework for fundamental change. Behind her, holographic displays began to unfold. They weren't weapons. They were Alina's research, her life's work, transformed into a living testament of scientific collaboration. Each slide showed not just data, but the human commitment to understanding and exploration. The Kreltheri representatives sat motionless, their crystalline exoskeletons reflecting the holographic light. They had expected a traditional diplomatic confrontation. Instead, they were witnessing something entirely different. Diplomatic channels across the galaxy began to receive comprehensive reports. These weren't simple communiques, but intricate documents that reimagined the entire framework of interspecies research protection. Each paragraph was a carefully constructed piece of potential legislation that would fundamentally alter how scientific researchers were protected. In Geneva, the United Earth Diplomatic Center worked in synchronization. Teams of legal experts, scientists, and communication specialists were creating a comprehensive response that went far beyond traditional diplomatic approaches. The first formal proposal emerged not as a demand, but as an invitation. A new international research protection framework that would apply to all species. The document was a masterpiece of diplomatic engineering. Every clause carefully constructed to prevent future incidents while promoting open scientific collaboration. Universities worldwide began contributing to the diplomatic effort. Research institutions submitted comprehensive reports detailing the importance of scientific exchange. These weren't emotional pleas, but carefully documented arguments that demonstrated the critical nature of open scientific exploration. The Centauri diplomatic corps, traditionally neutral, began to show significant interest. They recognized that the human response was creating a new paradigm of interstellar interaction that went beyond traditional conflict resolution. Communication networks buzzed with analysis. Diplomatic experts from various species tried to understand the human approach. It wasn't about punishment. It was about systemic transformation. Helena Reyes continued her presentation. Each slide was a carefully constructed narrative that transformed Elena's individual loss into a universal call for scientific protection. She demonstrated how the murder was not just an attack on one researcher, but a potential threat to the entire concept of scientific exploration. The Galactic Concordance found itself facing an unprecedented diplomatic approach. Humanity wasn't seeking traditional justice. They were proposing a complete restructuring of how scientific researchers were viewed and protected across different species. Legal teams worked on creating new frameworks that would provide comprehensive protection for researchers. These weren't simple treaties, but adaptive legal systems that could respond to the complex realities of interstellar scientific exploration. Space exploration teams began positioning research vessels in strategic locations. Their presence was a diplomatic statement, a demonstration of continued commitment to scientific exploration despite the recent tragedy. By the end of the diplomatic session, something extraordinary had happened. The conversation had shifted from a potential conflict to a comprehensive discussion about scientific collaboration, researcher protection, and interspecies understanding. The Krell discovered that their attempt to silence a single researcher had backfired spectacularly. Instead of eliminating a voice, they had created a global response that would reshape interstellar diplomatic understanding. Elena Rodriguez's death was becoming a catalyst for a diplomatic revolution that would echo through generations of interstellar exploration. The galaxy was about to learn that human diplomatic capability was about more than traditional negotiation. It was about adaptive intelligence, collaborative problem-solving, and an unwavering commitment to principles of scientific exploration and mutual understanding. The technological symphony reached its crescendo in ways no one could have anticipated. Deep in the quantum research facility of Cape Town, Dr. Marcus Chen watched as the final pieces of a complex global strategy began to align. What had started as a response to a single murder had transformed into the most sophisticated demonstration of technological capability the galaxy had ever witnessed. Communication networks across multiple star systems began to show unexpected patterns. Not disruptions, but subtle reconfigurations that seemed to breathe with an intelligent rhythm. Each network adapted, shifted, created pathways that defied traditional understanding of technological infrastructure. The Krell first noticed something was fundamentally wrong when their most secure communication channels began to behave unpredictably. It wasn't a complete breakdown. Something far more intricate was happening. Their technological systems were being systematically understood, mapped, and subtly influenced. Research vessels positioned strategically across key trade routes began transmitting complex data streams. These weren't simple scientific communications. Each transmission carried layers of encrypted information that created a living, adaptive network of knowledge exchange. In the orbital research stations surrounding Earth, teams of scientists and communication specialists worked in perfect synchronization. Their quantum computing networks were no longer just tools. They had become living systems of information processing that could anticipate and respond to complex interstellar dynamics. The Galactic Concordance Communication Hub received reports that defied traditional understanding. Humanity wasn't attacking technological systems. They were demonstrating a fundamental reimagining of how technological networks could interact, adapt, and communicate. Quantum communication arrays developed in collaboration between research institutions in Brazil, India, and South Africa created a network that was almost sentient in its responsiveness. Each node could reconfigure itself, finding new pathways of communication that traditional systems couldn't comprehend. The technological response was surgical and precise. Firewalls that had been considered impenetrable began to show unexpected vulnerabilities, not through brute force, but through a complex understanding of systemic interactions that went beyond traditional technological warfare. Space exploration teams began positioning advanced research vessels in strategic locations. These weren't military deployments. They were scientific expeditions equipped with communication arrays that could gather, process, and distribute information in ways that transformed the very concept of data exchange. The Centauri technological networks, traditionally cautious, began to show intense interest. They recognized that something extraordinary was happening, a fundamental transformation of technological interaction that went beyond traditional understanding. In the research facilities of Tokyo, a team of communication specialists worked on adaptive algorithms that could navigate the complex landscape of interstellar communication. Each algorithm was a living system, capable of understanding and responding to the most subtle changes in communication dynamics. The Krell discovered that their technological superiority was being systematically dismantled, not through direct attacks, but through a complex series of interventions that demonstrated a level of technological understanding that was both terrifying and breathtaking. Quantum computing centers around the world began implementing communication protocols that were part scientific exploration, part diplomatic statement. These networks could adapt in real time, creating pathways of information exchange that transcended traditional technological barriers. By the end of the technological intervention, something extraordinary had happened. The entire framework of interstellar communication had been fundamentally transformed. What looked like a response to a single murder was actually a comprehensive reimagining of technological interaction. Elena Rodriguez's research database became a living testament to the power of collaborative technological exploration. Her preliminary findings had been expanded, transformed into a comprehensive understanding of interspecies communication that was freely available to any civilization willing to collaborate. The technological response defied every traditional understanding of conflict resolution. This wasn't about defeating an opponent. It was about demonstrating the potential of adaptive, collaborative technological intelligence. Space exploration teams had created a network of research vessels that served as living communication nodes. Each vessel was more than a scientific expedition. They were adaptive communication platforms that could gather, process, and distribute information with unprecedented efficiency. The galaxy was about to learn that human technological capability was about more than military might. It was about adaptive intelligence, collaborative exploration, and an unwavering commitment to pushing the boundaries of technological understanding. Elena Rodriguez's death had become a catalyst for a technological revolution that would reshape how civilizations understood communication, collaboration, and the very nature of technological interaction. The trial of the Krell diplomat began in a courtroom that defied every traditional concept of interstellar justice. It wasn't a single chamber, but a distributed network of legal facilities spanning multiple planets and space stations, each connected through advanced holographic communication systems. Ambassador Helena Reyes stood at the center of this complex legal apparatus. Her presence was calm, calculated, a living embodiment of humanity's measured response to the murder of Dr. Elena Rodriguez. The first day of proceedings revealed the true complexity of humanity's approach. This wasn't going to be a simple criminal trial. It was a comprehensive examination of interstellar research protocols, diplomatic immunity, and the fundamental rights of scientific researchers. Evidence presentation began with Elena's complete research portfolio. Each document, each research note was meticulously displayed. The holographic displays showed not just the facts of her murder, but the comprehensive impact of her scientific work. Her research became a living testimony, demonstrating the value of the researcher beyond her physical existence. Legal teams from Earth had prepared a case that was nothing short of revolutionary. They weren't just seeking punishment for a single act. They were proposing a complete restructuring of how scientific researchers were protected across different species. The Galactic Concordance legal framework found itself facing an unprecedented challenge. Humanity had transformed a murder investigation into a comprehensive examination of interstellar scientific collaboration. Quantum communication networks facilitated a trial that was simultaneously transparent and secure. Every species could observe the proceedings, but the communication was so complex that only those with advanced technological capabilities could fully comprehend the nuanced legal arguments. The Krell diplomatic corps discovered that their traditional legal defenses were completely inadequate. Each argument they presented was systematically dismantled by a legal team that had prepared with unprecedented thoroughness. Research institutions worldwide contributed to the legal strategy. Universities submitted comprehensive reports detailing the importance of scientific exchange. These weren't emotional pleas, but carefully documented arguments that demonstrated the critical nature of researcher protection. Holographic reconstructions of the murder became a central piece of evidence. But these weren't simple crime scene representations. They were complex, multi-dimensional analyses that showed the broader implications of the act, how a single moment of violence could threaten the entire framework of scientific exploration. The trial became more than a legal proceeding. It was a global educational initiative. Every piece of evidence, every legal argument was designed to be understood by multiple species, creating a comprehensive narrative about the importance of scientific collaboration. Legal experts from the Centauri Diplomatic Corps watched with increasing interest. They recognized that humanity was creating a new paradigm of interstellar legal understanding that went far beyond traditional conflict resolution. By the third week of proceedings, something extraordinary had become clear. This wasn't just a trial about a single murder. It was a comprehensive examination of the value of scientific researchers, the importance of cross-species collaboration, and the fundamental principles of interstellar research protection. The quantum communication networks that facilitated the trial created a living, adaptive legal document. Each testimony, each piece of evidence became part of a growing framework that would reshape how different species understood scientific collaboration. The Krell discovered that their attempt to silence a single researcher had created a legal response that would fundamentally transform interstellar legal understanding. Elena Rodriguez's research became the cornerstone of a new legal framework. Her preliminary findings were transformed into comprehensive guidelines for researcher protection that would apply across multiple species. The final arguments presented by the human legal team were nothing short of revolutionary. They weren't seeking simple punishment. They were proposing a complete restructuring of how scientific researchers were viewed and protected across different civilizations. Space exploration teams positioned around the trial's communication nodes served as living testimonies to the continued commitment to scientific exploration. Each vessel was a statement. Research would continue, regardless of attempts to silence scientific progress. As the trial entered its final stages, it became clear that something profound had happened. What had begun as a response to a single murder had transformed into a comprehensive reimagining of interstellar legal and scientific collaboration. The galaxy was about to learn that human legal capability was about more than traditional prosecution. It was about adaptive intelligence, collaborative problem-solving, and an unwavering commitment to the principles of scientific exploration and mutual understanding. Elena Rodriguez's death had become a catalyst for a legal revolution that would echo through generations of interstellar exploration. The final resolution emerged not with a thunderous declaration, but with a quiet transformation that would reshape interstellar understanding for generations. In the months following the comprehensive legal proceedings, something extraordinary had occurred. What began as a response to a single murder had become a fundamental reimagining of interspecies collaboration, scientific exploration, and diplomatic interaction. The Galactic Concordance gathered in a session that would be remembered as a pivotal moment in interstellar history. Representatives from hundreds of species watched as the new framework of scientific researcher protection was unveiled. Dr. Marcus Chen stood alongside Ambassador Helena Reyes, representing the global human response. Their presentation was not a victory speech, but a carefully constructed invitation to a new way of understanding scientific collaboration. The new protocols were revolutionary. They created a comprehensive protection system for researchers that transcended individual species boundaries. Any scientific explorer, regardless of origin, would now have unprecedented legal and technological safeguards. Research institutions worldwide had transformed Elena Rodriguez's work into a living legacy. Her preliminary findings had been expanded, studied, and integrated into a comprehensive understanding of interspecies genetic adaptation that was freely available to any civilization willing to collaborate. The Kreltheri found themselves in an unprecedented position. Their initial act of violence had created exactly the opposite of their intended outcome. Instead of silencing a researcher, they had catalyzed a galaxy-wide transformation of scientific understanding. Quantum communication networks that had been developed during the response became a new standard for interstellar information exchange. These weren't just communication tools, they were adaptive systems that could facilitate unprecedented levels of scientific collaboration. Space exploration teams from multiple species began to implement the new protocols. Research vessels now carried comprehensive protection mechanisms, creating the new paradigm of scientific exploration that prioritized researcher safety and collaborative knowledge exchange. The technological innovations developed during the response began to show unexpected benefits. Communication systems became more adaptive, more responsive to the complex needs of interstellar research. What had been created as a response to a single incident was now transforming how different species understood technological interaction. Legal frameworks developed during the trial became a blueprint for future interspecies conflict resolution. The approach demonstrated that true justice was about more than punishment. It was about creating systems that prevented future conflicts and promoted mutual understanding. Universities across multiple planets began implementing comprehensive programs based on the new protocols. Elena Rodriguez's approach to scientific research, collaborative, open, boundary-pushing, became a model for future generations of researchers. The economic strategies developed during the response revealed a new approach to interstellar economic interaction. Trade became more about collaborative potential than simple resource exchange. The complex economic repositioning became a template for more nuanced economic diplomacy. Diplomatic channels found themselves fundamentally transformed. The human response had demonstrated that true diplomatic power came from adaptive intelligence, comprehensive understanding, and a commitment to collaborative problem-solving. The Centauri diplomatic corps, initially cautious observers, became active proponents of the new framework. They recognized that humanity had created something far more profound than a response to a single incident. As the first anniversary of Elena Rodriguez's death approached, something remarkable happened. Research institutions worldwide conducted a synchronized global research initiative. Her work was not just remembered, it was being actively expanded, explored, and celebrated. The quantum communication networks continued to evolve. What had been created as a response to a single incident had become a living, adaptive system of knowledge exchange that transcended traditional technological limitations. Space exploration teams from multiple species began to collaborate in ways that would have been unimaginable before. The protective frameworks developed during the response created a new level of trust and collaborative potential. The galaxy discovered that humanity's response was about far more than protecting a single researcher. It was a comprehensive demonstration of how a species could transform a moment of loss into a catalyst for profound systemic change. Elena Rodriguez's death had become more than a tragedy. It was the moment that reshaped how different species understood collaboration, scientific exploration, and mutual respect. In research facilities, diplomatic chambers, and space exploration vessels across the galaxy, her legacy continued to inspire. The human response had demonstrated a fundamental truth: that the most powerful response to violence is not revenge, but a comprehensive commitment to understanding, collaboration, and progress. The galaxy would never be the same.